Hi, welcome to the Dairy Hour podcast, where rural charm meets personal growth. Join us as we milk every moment for wisdom, self-improvement, and mental wellness. I'm your host, Val Lavigne, a rural dairy farming mom with a passion for filling hearts while never forgetting to fill my own cup. Get ready for insightful conversations, empowering tips, and a splash of fun and laughs, of course. Let's cultivate growth, nourish our minds, and embrace the journey together. This is the Dairy Hour podcast, where every episode is a breath of fresh air and the inspiration you need to be your best self. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dairy Hour podcast. I am your host, Val Lavigne, and I'm joined today by not just one guest, but two guests today. I am joined by Katy Schultz and Peggy Coffeen. Ladies, how are you today?
Doing great, Val. Absolutely fantastic.
Excellent. Good. And I'm so excited to talk to you. You both have so much energy and so much positivity within the dairy industry itself, but just as rural moms and entrepreneurs. And I love that. So I guess let's start by just getting to know you girls a little bit before we dive deeper into some fun content. Katy, if you want to say a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to say thank you for having me on. I'm excited and it's been an honor, and I can't wait to dive in and get to know you ladies better as well, and just kind of have a little girl talk here. So this is fun. Again, my name is Katy Schultz, and I am from Fox Lake, Wisconsin. I grew up on a family farm, had the opportunity to go to college and get a degree in agribusiness and marketing, spent some time studying abroad and just kind of exploring the world a little bit, spent some time doing some education work down in South America, and just have really been kind of enthralled in kind of international agriculture. Came back after college and worked in marketing and communications for about 5 to 6 years or so, and at the same time was working part-time at our family farm, and just made the transition in my late 20s that it was time for me to come back to the farm full-time. And so my brother, my sister, and I had the opportunity to come into our family farm. So now we have bought our family farm, and we are the sole owners and working together. I lovingly say I get to work with my two best friends every single day, and I don't take that lightly, as I know that sometimes working with family is hard and challenging, and not that it's not hard and challenging for us, but it's an absolute reward to be able to do it every day. And so I am the on-farm manager. We lovingly say I manage anything with a heartbeat. So that's cows, calves, heifers, people, PR, and our on-farm market. And so people are really what drive me and get me excited and get me out of bed every day. That's where my passion lies. And with that, I opened an on-farm market. So we are direct selling products from our farm. We started that about 4 years ago now, and that has just really taken off and just given us a different perspective of our role of our farm in our community, and what does that look like as an entire impact on a community, not just being a family farm and being here, but looking at impact across our local community, a little bit wider spread than that. Outside of the farm, I've had the opportunity to serve our industry with the professional dairy producers on their board of directors and in the president's role for 3 years there, 6 years on the board, and then just have taken a step back from that role and been able to kind of pour back into that local community again. I'm extremely involved in our local FFA alumni. I've helped to establish a foundation there, as well as I worked together with one of my childhood best friends and established a women's Christian conference organization as well. And so those are probably my primary buckets right now that I'm managing, in addition to being pretty much a personal assistant to the coolest 10-year-old I've ever met.
Katy, I love it. I feel like I finally might have found someone that's busier than me, and I kind of feel pretty good about that. Because it makes me feel like I'm not alone when I'm like, oh, I don't have time for that. I'm scheduled to the minute. I have no free time. I can schedule you in like 6 weeks at 4 a.m, of course. So I get that, and I love it, and I love your enthusiasm. Peggy, how about you?
Gosh, so to introduce myself, I'm going to start with what I am at the end of the day. And I always look at my role and my purpose in this world. It's creating and connecting. And so I'm starting with that because that is why when Val reached out to me about this podcast, I said, I would really love to bring my friend Katy along for this little journey because I think the two of you would just be best friends and connect really well. And so that's part of who I am is just a connector, and I love connecting people to each other, people with ideas, people with things that can help them get hope, inspiration, information, whatever that might look like. And that's really what I do through my work with the Up Level Dairy podcast, where I am the creator of that and the host of that. And a little bit about my background: grew up, born and raised on a Wisconsin dairy farm. I always say I grew up milking cows in a tie stall barn and driving tractors not very well, but yet I never got fired. So from that job. But yeah, grew up doing all the things. And so now I live up in the Green Bay area, and we have 4 kiddos. I would say 2 bigs and 2 littles. So we have our oldest kids are 22 and 24 now, and our youngest are 6 and 9 years old. So mom of 4. And my career has always been in dairy industry communications. And a big chunk of that was as a magazine editor for a national publication called Progressive Dairy. So some of your listeners that are in the dairy audience, they might, my name might be familiar from that. But I went on my own about 2 years ago and just saw an opportunity to serve dairy producers in a different way and to use my skill sets in a different way to do that. And so that's what brings me to the Up Level Dairy podcast. But dairy is what I do for fun. We have some cattle that we're going to be showing this year because our second set of kids, we're just getting into show age there. Coach Dairy Quiz Bowl in my spare time. And if I'm not doing something dairy related, I'm probably out running. So Katy and I, we like to trade our notes over our running inspirations as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Up Level Dairy podcast host is where, you'll find me these days. And I'm just looking at every opportunity I can to serve the industry better and the people in it.
Fantastic. So I want to dive right in, and I really want to focus this episode on, more of a mindset, being a busy mom and in the industry and just doing your own thing, being torn in 8,000 directions. Keeping yourself in line is so important, and keeping yourself where you feel good about yourself and you are happy and in a good place, because it is so easy to get dragged through the weeds, get overwhelmed, and just basically just go kersplat. I guess there's not really a much better term for it, but just major burnout. And I always say that, in order to fill someone else's cup, whether that be professionally or within your family, you have to be filling from a full cup, not an empty cup, because obviously nothing comes out if it's empty, and that doesn't get you very far. So I really want to focus kind of on that angle. So I guess let's start with the challenges side. What were some of the big challenges that you faced when, starting your business, getting into your groove? Peggy, why don't you go first?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, Val, I think what you just set the stage for is so real and so relevant to women and men too, right? That we're all trying to do all the things. And so, probably the biggest challenges that came up for me when I decided to make that leap from working the, kind of quote unquote corporate job, working for someone else, and go on my own with Up Level Dairy. Those challenges were, one is I was kind of walking into some uncharted territory. It wasn't like there were all of these people out there in the dairy community that were independent podcasters and doing that. And so it was kind of, kind of creating from scratch a little bit of a framework for what my business would even be. But what I knew was that I had a skill set, and what I loved was storytelling. And in order to be able to serve dairy producers in a way that I was hearing that they wanted to be served differently, it was meeting them where they're at. So, and so that was, that's where really the podcast came from. But like I said, there was no framework for okay, you want to become an independent podcaster and make that your business. Like, it wasn't like there was something I could just pull off the internet and fill in all the blanks. I kind of created it, myself, and a little bit on the fly, a little bit along the way. But I think that was the challenge, but it was also the excitement for me. As I mentioned, like, I'm a creator and a connector. Like, that is my purpose in this world. And one of the most fun things for me to do is to take a blank slate and to put a vision to it and to put the steps in place to put that vision into action. So that doesn't mean it's always easy, right? Like, when you start something new and something that's different. But I would say, like, other challenges that came up along the way were just, really also deciding where I wanted to place my focus. And by that, I mean, like, I knew that I wanted to serve producers in the way that I'm serving them right now. But how would I go from leaving my corporate job to doing that? What did that look like in between? And initially, I had sketched out this business plan that included doing some marketing consulting work and doing other things for other people, with the idea that, okay, I will do this, and then I will get to the point to do the thing I really want to do. And what I realized along the way was that I could skip some of the steps in between and be more successful by going to what I really wanted to be doing faster, and was just so blessed to have the support of the industry and the support of listeners in the dairy community that were excited to jump on that journey. So those are some of the challenges that came up, but it was also what was exciting and what has just fueled my fire for the last 2.5 or so with what I'm doing with the Up Level Dairy podcast.
Awesome. How about you, Katy?
Yeah, I think when I look back at some of the challenges and maybe and a couple of key points in my life, and maybe one of those transitions is moving from the corporate world back to farming full time. It's just kind of one of those things, coming in as an late 20s, early 30-year-old and jumping into ownership of a farm. And I think probably there's two major parts that probably played the biggest effect on me. And one is respect, right? And so being able to be a young female in an ownership role and being able to gain respect, not only from our team on farm, but from our community and from our industry, and just finding my own way in that aspect was it was a challenge for me in a really good way. It really made me find what made me different. It made me dig a little bit deeper so that I could figure out how to work really well with people. And like I said earlier, people are what drive me. People are what my passion is. And so for me, it was more of a game of, okay, so how can I get this person to respect me? What do they value as respect? How do they see respect in the world? And so being able to know myself well enough that I had to kind of figure out how to navigate that river as I was walking, and maybe swimming and drowning up it as it was coming down at me. And so the gaining and maintaining respect, and what did that look like? That on farm, that meant literally having both hands in the manure with my employees working side by side. There's nobody above anyone, and everyone is on a level playing field, and there's no one above anything here. And so our team will tell you that I would never expect them to do a job that I wouldn't do myself. And so just being able to be humble enough to have those conversations when you're starting at the bottom and being able to work your way up really was crucial in trying to build that respect faster. And I would say the second part is probably finding that connection point. So as Peggy said, connection is also one of my founding core principles. And so when I went from working in the corporate world where I'm dealing with people all of the time, I'm talking to people, I'm in an office setting, I'm going out on farm visits, I'm doing all of these things, to coming back and I have my team, my little team, right? And so those are the only people I interact with on a day-to-day basis. And so I had to figure out how to create connection where I'm at. I live in rural Wisconsin. I'm 15 minutes from a town. And it's a town that I probably don't spend very much time in to begin with. And so how do you create connection and when people are my passion? And so I had to find outlets. I had to find ways in order to be connected to people. And so that meant jumping into some of these industry organizations that it gave me an opportunity to meet other farmers, to bounce ideas off of, to have a sounding board, to have a peer group. That also meant creating an online community, right? And so I really, in the last probably 5 years, have really taken off on just trying to create groups and be able to foster kind of, it's almost like a peer group. And so sometimes I'm running monthly challenges, sometimes it's a couple months long. But for me, that's filling a bucket that I didn't know I needed to fill until I didn't have it. So when I wasn't around people, I had to figure out how am I going to still get my people part of me fulfilled. And so there was the creating community and being involved in things. And then the last piece of that was opening our on-farm market. And so we are opening our farm up to our community once a week. Everyone is coming here. We're online telling them about what's happening on our farm. And I didn't know that that was going to bring me nearly as much fulfillment as I did, because it sounds like work. But for me, it is such a work of my heart, and I love every minute of it. And so I think being intentional about being and building respect and finding those connection points would probably be my two biggest stretch points.
Great. And I guess you kind of answered my second question for you already. So I guess we will go to Peggy with this one. And Peggy, what are some of the things that you did to overcome those obstacles that you spoke about?
Yeah. So, so what I think one of the greatest things that I've learned along the way for overcoming any obstacle, whether it was being able to create a framework for something that didn't even exist, or anything else that has come up since then, is I've just really learned the value of taking the time to just stop and pause and to vision. And that was hard at first. And I think it's hard for a lot of us, especially in the farming community, because like, what are we wired to do? We are wired to move. We are wired to work. We are wired to stay busy. That can be actually harder than doing a hard job is to stay still. Am I hearing, like, am I hitting a point here? Anybody? So what I learned to cultivate for myself was creating some space, especially if I hit a point of maybe feeling a little bit of overwhelm, or like I was at, not sure, what to do next, of like, actually, instead of keeping doing, to just stop for a moment. Maybe it's pulling out a journal. And maybe it's just closing my eyes for a few minutes and just, digging into like just really reconnecting with my faith and my purpose, which has always been very clear, and just starting to really envision in my head, like, what is it that I feel like I'm called to do, and how am I called to best do it? Like, and when I say that, like, sometimes it's writing it down, but it's like painting a picture in my mind. And I'm a very visual person. So if I can paint that picture in my mind, and then I will take it the next step, and I like make vision boards. And when I say vision board, like, it is not fancy. It is not pretty. It is like, it's the difference between like, waiting for it to be perfect or getting it done. And so my vision board is like not perfect, but it is clear. Like, the pictures and the images are clear because they are what I see in my mind. And when I started giving myself the gift of slowing down long enough, even if it was, for 5 minutes, to just make sure that I was clear on my vision and where I was going and how I was being called to serve, that has been such a game changer. And so I do it for Up Level Dairy, and I try to do that as a mom. I try to do that, for my marriage, and just kind of for how I want to be, how world, and not just what I want to get done in the day. And so, I mean, it sounds like maybe a little bit fluffy or whatever, but for me, it has been such a powerful practice to just learn how to hit the pause button, step away from busy, and like reconnect with myself and the vision, so that I can make more clear decisions and get where I want to go faster.
Have a story to share or wisdom to impart? Be a guest on the Dairy Hour podcast with me, Val Lavigne. We are seeking passionate individuals from all walks of life for insightful conversations and empowering tips. From mindset to motherhood to nutrition and fitness, we cover all of the essentials to be your best self. Share your journey and inspire others. Reach out today to be a guest on the Dairy Hour podcast, where your voice can make a difference. For more information, visit dairygalval.com or email at dairygalval@icloud.com.
So Peggy, what is a pause button exactly? Because I don't have one of those, and maybe I need to install one in myself. I love the fact that you have kind of purposely driven yourself to have that specific pause in your life and be able to stop and evaluate what you're doing, make sure that you are headed in the right direction. And I definitely think that as, people that are just constantly on the go, like we are, I feel like that is something that, looking into the future, it's something that, I know I myself really should be working on that to make sure that I'm not going in 8,000 directions, but ensure that, the journey is headed in the direction that I want to go, and that I'm not just kind of wandering on the side trails over here and not actually reaching my final destination. So I really love the way that you worded that with the pause button. So Peggy, what are some other things that you do in your life to help keep your mind centered and, keep your mindset positive? Because sometimes just even being around the dairy industry a lot, it can be so mentally taxing. So what are some of the things that you do besides pausing that just help you keep that mindset in the right spot?
Yeah, that's a question. And if you don't mind, Val, can I tell you a little bit more about the pause button? Is it okay if I go there for a minute?
You certainly can.
Because as you were just asking, like, I make it sound like it's this like perfect thing that like, I've done my whole life. It's not. Anytime that I bring something into my life, it's typically because of something like that had to hurt first, so to speak. And so I'm going to tell you a real quick story that I hope others can learn from too. So before I had left my corporate job and started Up Level Dairy, I had started another business from our little farm. And it was a direct to consumer product business using, plants that we grow on our farm and all this stuff. And I started it from scratch. I loved building out the brand, and I loved, packaging up this, the packages to send out to my customers. And I still love how it serves people. There was like this moment, Val, where I was like, in my office where I was running this business, the CBD wellness business, running my, full-time career with the magazine. And also, not to mention, in the home where I'm also a mom, right? Like, cause this is how we all roll. We're like operating everything out of the same space. And I remember like getting to a point where I was like sitting on the floor in my office, surrounded by like boxes and like packaging materials, and like overwhelmed because I had created something that was, it was going well, it was successful, but it was like it was starting to run me, right? I wasn't running it was running me. And so I remember like sitting on the floor of my office, like basically like just picture me, right? Like on the floor, sitting cross-legged and like covered in like crinkle paper and packaging tape and CBD products, which, I'm like, I just had created a business to help other people be less stressed. And I'm the one who's stressing out. So it was like this pinpoint or this pivotal moment where I had to feel the pain to say, like, this isn't working and I need to figure out what to do about it. And so that really kind of prompted me to start saying, okay, if I have goals for this business and I have goals for, my career and goals for my family, like I need some help sorting this all out. And I actually enrolled in a coaching program at the time and have participated in several since. And that really helped me to gain clarity. And it forced me to hit that pause button because I would have, someone that was checking in on me and just holding me accountable for what I said I actually wanted, which wasn't a more stressed and crazy life. It was a life of, more balance and more freedom and more peace. and less stress. So that was like kind of that pivotal moment, and how it helped me to learn how to push a pause button. And now I've just gotten a lot better at doing it myself, because I'll recognize when the overwhelm is setting in. Like when my head is spinning and my to-do list is like insane, that is when I'm like, okay, I've been here before. I've been sitting on the floor covered in crinkle paper, and this is where I gotta stop for a minute. And so, like, to answer the other part of your question, what's helped with a positive mindset, at that point in time, one of the things that really helped was, investing in myself by investing in like a coaching program. And it was really hard. It was really hard for me to do that. Like, and I think it's hard for a lot of us, right? To like invest in ourselves, and to do something that maybe like is at that time, rural women did not talk about coaches like 5 years ago. Now I feel like, there's a coach on every corner type thing. But like 5 years ago, it was a very foreign concept and very foreign to me. Asking for help was super hard, right? But that led me to the space of being like, okay, now I know how to hit my own pause button. And now I also know that when I hit those points of overwhelm, in order to maintain that positive mindset, one of the pieces of the puzzle is listening to my body and my mind. And when my mind starts running too fast and my body gets tense, like because I'm feeling overwhelmed, that's when I'm able to regulate myself better in those regards. And I feed positive mindset, every single day through routine. And that's a morning Bible study, a morning gratitude practice, and also being increasingly picky about who I keep close in my circle, and making sure that the people whose voices are in my ear, who I'm chatting back and forth with on Facebook Messenger, right, Katy, who's one of my Facebook Messenger buddies, that those are the voices that are keeping me on the upside of that equation. And so that's a long answer to a short question, but I hope there was a couple nuggets in there that are helpful.
I love that. And, when you say about knowing who's in your circle and whatnot, it just brings that quote, if they're not cheering for you, they're basically cheering against you. And I think that especially as we get older and realize this, I feel like that really resonates true with a lot of things. And I've noticed a lot of that, and it just helps to, to clear out who's around you, just helps get the background noise out of your head and help you focus on where you truly belong. Or the other saying, 4 quarters is better than 100 pennies. In friends, it's better to have some really great friends that you can really lean on than 100 friends that are like, meh, it doesn't really make a difference if they're there for you or not. They're not really going to help you out in your time of need. So, Katy, I am dying to know some of the things that you do to help your mindset on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I have a few that are kind of play really well into along the same lines as what Peggy's saying. And so I love to talk about your top 5. So the top 5 people that you are spending the most time with, that you are investing in, and what do they look like? And so I like to do a check, right? So when I'm talking about your top 5, I need them to be the most authentic people in your life. So they need to be able to have the hard conversations with you. They need to be able to call you out, and they have to be the loudest, most positive voices in your head. There is no time for anyone that is questioning you in a negative way or not seeing you fulfill your goals and not literally being your cheerleader. If someone is the same phrase that you said, if someone's not cheering for you, they're cheering against you. And I'm just picky. I'm really picky about my top 5 and who I'm spending that time with. And it is, and for me on the farm, I have my earbuds in, so it's literally who is talking in my ear all day, every day. And if you choose to put people in your ear or in your life that are maybe not that they're not cheering for you, but just maybe derailing and maybe just getting your mind off of what your goals are. That small sidestep can really take you down a rabbit hole. And so making sure those 5 they're cheering for you, they're holding you accountable, they want to see you win, they want to see you crush your goals, but making sure that they're authentic in that version of you and making sure that they can see what your vision is. And so not everyone is going to understand where you're going or why you're going there, but not everybody has to. I only need my top 5 that know this is where she's going and watch the heck out because she's going to get there and we're going to do whatever it takes to help her. And I've had to learn that those 5 change. I'm not set on my top 5. The same 5 I had in high school are not the same 5 I had in college, are not the same 5 I had as a new mom. It changes with my season of life. And in each season, it's finding that person that understands where you're going. And I struggled when I had to really make some of those hard decisions and realize that maybe this person wasn't serving that purpose anymore. And it's not that you don't need to be friends with them. It's just that they're not in your top 5. That's the raw, honest truth. And it's just that maybe you just need to spend less time with them. And my second part of just not only choosing your top 5, one of my daily practices is I have a group called the Grateful Girls. And so I started the Grateful Girls about 4 years ago. I had read a book and it talked about positive mindset and how when you start your day off looking for the good in the day, you truly have a way of looking for that positivity. And so it started off with just me and one of my childhood best friends. And we started a Snapchat and I said, all right, every day I want you to tell me 3 things you're grateful for. And it started from there and it has grown substantially. And so it's still based via Snapchat just for ease purposes. But some people it's a sweaty selfie. Some people it's a Snapchat of their Bible. Some people it's whatever they want to use as the accountability tool of what I'm doing, but they have their 3 things that they're grateful for. And it becomes almost like a game. So during your day, you're already thinking like, oh, this is going to be a good one. I got to remember this to put on my gratefuls tomorrow. And it really changes your outlook throughout the day because you know that group is definitely going to be looking for you. And mine is all individual contacts. And so each year I challenge each of those girls to grow their circle. And so my circle grows by 3 people every single year. And so we're growing, but on an individual basis. And it's a point where 1, you're sharing things you're grateful for. And 2, it creates a little bit of vulnerability, right? It gives people an opportunity to really get to know you and what do you value and what do you see in the day to day. And so not only is it helping with keeping my mindset in a grateful place, but it's helping grow some of those connections and grow some of those friendships and people that you have in your life.
That's wonderful. And it's so important to lean on those other people in your life. I mean, if you don't have someone to lean on, that would just be so not good for you. You need people that'll lift you up. If you feel alone, you need to find your people, whether they be people that maybe even don't live near you, but you can have a phone conversation with them, talk to them, via Snapchat, like Katie's group. But definitely finding those people. I've recently done a program with Emily Rochelle, and it was basically just about igniting a fire in you and growing yourself to who you want to be. And this is a shout out to those ladies. They are so inspirational and they are just a great sounding board. If you're having a rough day, they want to hear about it. They want to know how they can help make it better. They want to give you suggestions, but they're always there to listen. And sometimes in life, you just need those people because, like I said before, agriculture can be so segregating and, just being alone all the time and monotonous. So it's just nice to have those, people with outside views of the world, maybe people from somewhere else, where you can get like a different perspective on the weather or whatever's going on in the world. It's just so nice to have those people to lean on. And there are so many different groups out there now. Like you were saying, Peggy, the coaching, you know, thankfully in 2024, these things are exploding and people are becoming more and more aware of their mental health and how important it is that they take care of themselves and take care of their mental health. So going back to that friend circle, how do you maintain and support those relationships? And I guess we will throw it to you, Katy.
Yeah, I'm really intentional when it comes to my friendships. Again, where people are what fill my cup. Make a really, really solid point of kind of looking back at what one of my life verses is. And so that's I'd let them see you in me. And so how can I serve them? So putting others before me is, I think when you can put it into healthy boundaries, I think that there is just something that people value of you. When they feel authentically heard and seen and valued, they have the ability to become the better versions of themselves. And for me, I know that being able to create a connection point, bring positivity, and encourage growth are my core values. And so when I can use those to help others is where I can just feel the people around me growing and growing faster, right? And so I just get really intentional. And so I am checking in with someone if I haven't heard from them, and I normally hear from them once a week. It's my job to check in. It's my job to make sure that I'm maintaining those friendships. And at the same point, if there's somebody that maybe isn't reaching out or really just, is having a hard time, it's really easy to get caught up in our busyness. We have a million things going on, but that's when it comes into building habits of intention, right? Being intentional with your time. I can't expect people to pour into me and to support me if I'm not turning around and doing that to them. And so being that pillar of how can I serve someone else?
Yeah, and to go along with that, I feel like, you said, you need to be there for them and they're there for you, but it's also, and it's not a 50-50 thing all the time. Like sometimes one person might need a lot more support than the other, but then there's going to be other seasons where that switches and maybe that person needs more support. So it's really good, and it is kind of like a balance, but it is important to find those people that you can lean on that give you the support, but you also do need to not be a one-sided friend, and you need to give that support back when it's needed. So that, I love the way that you put that. Peggy, what are some of the things that you do to maintain your friendships and relationships?
But, I think one thing I've learned, to your point, is that we all can get really busy being busy, right? And one of the blocks that I have ran into over the years is maybe a belief that there's like this perfect, beautiful way that I should be reaching out to people and showing support, right? And I always think of like, oh, I need to send them a card, right? And or something like that, or something that's big, or something, some picture in my mind of what that should look like. But I think what I've learned is that just doing something, whether it's, if I see a friend that shared something really cool, on their social media post, instead of just adding the comment to the post, it's taking the minute, the 30 seconds to send them maybe a personal message, and saying, hey, I saw this and it's awesome. And, and just kind of just doing the little things at times to personalize, what I see in others and the great things that they're doing. And, it's, like I said, for me, I think it's been just rethinking what that looks like and realizing that, that little tiny touch could just be the thing that solidifies a friendship, reminds us of our friends and who's there for you, and can be the thing that makes somebody's day just a little bit brighter. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that I've tried to do, over the years, but maybe reframed what it looks like is to say, okay, like reaching out to friends and supporting friends, it doesn't always mean sending a package. It just might mean sending a quick voice memo so that they know that they're being thinking of, that they know that they're being prayed for, and that they know that someone out there is loving on them from afar. And that's what I try to do more of.
Yeah, I think I would agree with Peggy on that, in the aspect that doing it right in the moment. When you feel that something reminded you of a person, or they came to your head, or they're on your heart, I think there's a reason for that. And so that has been probably something I've been working on really intentionally for the last probably year and a half, is just stopping and sending them a message. And it's nothing fancy like a card or a package. It's a text message. Hey, I was just thinking about you today. You made me smile. How are you? How's it going? And just in the exact moment when that feeling comes across, or you remember that person. Because again, when we get home and the chaos of the dishes and the laundry and the emails and the everything else happens, and you think, oh, I should have sent them a message. No, do it immediately.
Yes, and people have time to sit down and scroll on their phones, so they have time to send a quick message. So that excuse is not valid here. So I want to kind of pivot into, the quote unquote, which I don't think it's actually a balance, but that work-life balance, and trying to maintain those boundaries. And how do you, especially, you both are working, at home, essentially. You're not ever leaving. It's not like you're getting up in the morning and driving to the office. So how have you learned to basically keep that balance, keep those boundaries? And I guess we'll throw it to you, Peggy.
It is an ever evolving challenge. It is hard. It is hard when you work and live in the same space, right? Like, my podcast recording office is right across from our living room, and where I spend our family time and where I spend my work time, it's all in one place. And that means that it can be really hard to separate. It's not like you close the door and drive away at the end of the day, or you close the door at home and drive to work. It's all in one place. And so I've definitely, over the years, had periods of time where that balance was unhealthy. And even if I wasn't in my office working, my mind was still working, right? Like, you're still thinking about work because it's hard to check out. Or we all have these awesome cell phones that we have everything at our fingertips, including emails and text messages and all the things, and social media. Really what's worked for me and what I've developed by, again, I won't say I do anything because I'm just, I'm a great person. I make good choices. No, something has to be painful enough for me to say, okay, I want to change something. And so the boundaries, that I've set, a couple of things in my day that are pretty standard is, I've really tried to, hold office hours. Office hours start when the kids get on the bus, and office hours end when the kids get off the bus. And nothing makes you bookend the end of the day more than if you intentionally schedule your kids' activities so that you have to leave like 20 minutes after they get off the bus. So I basically create my own structure that forces me to to be able to better kind of clock in and clock out. And so then that goes to the whole cell phone thing, right? And who doesn't struggle, and maybe it's not a struggle for everybody, but who doesn't spend more time than they should on social media or on their phones? And so what I've done, I actually have zero social media on my phone. Like, I can't even access it. And I also have set my phone with timers, so that app timers, so that from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. or 7 a.m., most of my not really important apps are turned off. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't hit a couple buttons that allow me to get into them, but it makes me stop, right? It makes me stop and say, do I really need to scroll on Amazon for stuff I don't need right now? Right. But it's just kind of these little functions that I've added to my daily life to say, all right, and I would peel back a layer and said it started first with getting clear on what I wanted and taking time to back to that pause button, journaling out, like, what does my ideal day look like? And doing this on a regular basis. And it was even more important when I started my own business because I was starting from scratch, which meant I was starting my life from scratch, my day from scratch, and saying, okay, what do I want to be? How do I want to be? And not just what do I want to do and who do I want to be, but how do I want to be? And being able to just really vision that out, sketch it out, have a clear picture in my head. And that meant that, okay, if I want to, be this way, then these are things that I don't want in my life anymore. And so that social media and that ability to access my phone all the time, like those were distractions that were taking me away from who I wanted to be, which was focused, attentive at work, as a mom, with my husband, all of those things. So I basically just create obstructions in my environment to get a little bit better balance. And I've also learned, what it is that I need for myself to be at my best. And I think as moms and as women, we are so used to putting everyone else first, and it can feel really, really selfish at times to do that. But what I also learned is that when we often hit burnout. And it's not because we're doing too much always. Sometimes it's because we're not doing enough of the right things that we need for us. Right? And so you're both super busy, you have these crazy, packed schedules, as we talked about earlier. And if all those things that are on your calendar and in your day, if they are filling your cup, keep them, right? But if there are things that are not, then it's time to hold it up and say, okay, do I have the ability to change, or what do I want to add in to be at my best? And for me, that was creating some non-negotiables in my schedule. And by non-negotiables, what that looks like is, I get up at 5 o'clock every morning. And that means if I want to get up at 5, then I'm going to make sure I'm in bed earlier. And it's a morning routine. It's, Bible study is the way I start my day. And the fact that I don't have all these apps on my phone that can distract me right away means that the first thing I'm going to go to is the Bible app and do my devotions and do my gratitude practice. And then, from there, I get my workout in, and working out and running for me is a non-negotiable because I am at my best for everyone else and at work and at home and more attentive and focused when I make sure that happens. My goodness, you could ask my husband and my kids, if mom doesn't get her workout in, she's probably not showing up as her best self. But that is what I've come to know for myself that I need for, it's not just the physical and mental health. Honestly, a lot of it, it's a way to know that before 7 o'clock, I've accomplished something, right? I've checked a box. I'm working towards a bigger goal, whatever I'm training right now, just started marathon training this week. Like checking those boxes is what I need to see for my own personal satisfaction, to see my growth and to see my own improvement. And it gives me the power and the steam to do the next thing that could be in a totally different area of life. And so, I think what I've learned is to say no to more and to say yes to the right things, and to look around and say, what are the distractions? Like Katy and I, we both see and hear, God's voice in a lot of the things that we do. And there was a really powerful, thing that just convicted me maybe a year ago. And I was at a point where I was like, I can really feel God, that I can feel God saying move, right? Like be in action and move, like go forward. But I also was getting strongly convicted that like when God says move, he's also saying remove, and remove the things that are holding you back from moving in the right direction as fast as he wants you to get there. And when you really look at what are those distractions and what can you remove, you might be surprised at what you can take out of your list and how that can start to flip things around a little bit in that balance picture.
That was fantastic, Peggy. And I love all of the different points that you hit on, and, structuring yourself with office hours, and we were talking about the kids and the kids getting on the bus earlier before we started recording. So Peggy, your office is right near your living room. My office is currently at my kitchen table. And we were talking about children, and if my kids are home when I'm recording a podcast, I always say, don't come in, stay outside, play, like go to grandma's house, do things. And my kids will always sneak in and they'll stand at the other end of my kitchen table and they just give me the like blank stare. They won't necessarily make a noise. They'll just stare. And Peggy said her kids like to make guest appearances in the videos. So it's that mom podcasting.
Oh yeah, I
right
should
there.
just not even edit them out. Like, yeah, I have like tons of B-roll of shirtless children wandering into the frame, and I should just leave them. I should just leave them. And they're both boys, and they're young, so it's okay that they don't have their shirts on. You never know what you're gonna get around my house.
Oh my gosh. I think that comes with the having kids and being a mom. Like, it just, no holds barred. Like, it's going to happen. Whatever's going to happen. Whatever you say is never going to happen. Guess what? It's going to happen. So, my gosh, I love it. Katy, what are some of the things that you do for a work-life balance?
Yeah, I think when I hear the word balance, I think that throws me for a bit, of course, because I just don't think balance is actually attainable. So in my head, I like to picture it more of juggling. So we each have our balls that are important, right? And every day that ball is,
Katy,
the balls
can I pause you for one
What
second?
is important today? Yeah.
So you say you think of it more as juggling. A few episodes ago, I had an episode called Do You Know How to Juggle? So I just have to throw that out there because I 100% agree that it is more of a juggle than a balance. So now I proceed. I just had to flag that because the second you said juggle, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, it totally is.
Ah, that's fantastic. Yeah, and it's just every day you're waking up and you're deciding, okay, which balls do I have today? And which ones are actually important? And so all you're doing is catching and releasing what's important at that moment. Whether we're talking minute by minute, hour by hour, morning to afternoon, each day you have the power to decide what's really important. And it's not that you're going to keep all of them in the air all the time. That's completely unattainable, but making it just, okay, right now, I just need to pick what's the most important out of all of these makes it feel like we can accomplish it, right? It's not this overwhelming feeling of I have to do this and I have to get this done and I have to get this done. And I lovingly refer to it as the ticker tape in my head. And so, like the stock market ticker tape that just keeps going and it never stops. The to-do list that I got to get this done, I got to do that becomes overwhelming. And so when you stop and break it down by this ball actually is only important until 9 a.m. and then I'm going to get that done, check that off the list and move on. And so just being able to section it into really manageable pieces feels like you have the power and the control. And it's not this overwhelming, out of balance feeling. And yeah, I think when I look at, my day-to-day stuff, and we all have things going on, and I'm really intentional about those core values I talked about. So mine are growth, positivity, and connection. And if something is not falling in those buckets or all three of those buckets, it's not that important to me. I don't have enough time in a day to be entertaining and doing things that don't meet my core goals, that don't meet my core values. I just don't have the energy and time. And so I've had to become really intentional on making sure those things hit that list or they're just not going to get done because I don't have the fire and passion to do them. So why would I do them anyways? And nobody wants me to do something, halfway. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it 100% and wholeheartedly. And so just getting really critical on those things instead of saying yes to everything, which is just adding stress, right? It's just adding to your to-do list and it's not fulfilling you and it's not going to fulfill whether that's another person, another organization, whatever it is. It's not doing a service to any of them. And so being able to say no is just as powerful as saying yes to things. And yeah, I go back to the same idea as Peggy. I am a crazy habit person. I very much am a creature of habit. I go to bed at the same time, and I like to wake up at exactly 4 o'clock. And I love the idea of habit stacking. So when I'm trying to create new habits, so you find something you're doing already and then you just tie a new habit to it. And so when I had started the Grateful Girls idea, so for me, the Grateful Girls idea is literally when I put the toothpaste on my toothbrush, that's when I start thinking, okay, what am I going to type? What am I going to put on there? And so just being able to create structure in your day helps so that you don't have this overwhelming imbalance. When I get home from work at night, I do not do dishes and I do not do laundry. I only do dishes and laundry in the mornings, because after work, when I get home, that's the time that I get to spend with my daughter. And that's the time that we get to play and have fun and do whatever. So if you come over to my house at night, expect there to be dishes, expect it to be dirty, because it's not getting cleaned until the next day. And I've had to set really hard boundaries with that. And I have to be okay with it, because that's not a life I want. It's not creating a life I want. I can do those things when she's still sleeping or when she's not up yet and getting ready for school and whatever, because that's not the intentional time that I want to spend with her. It's when we get home from work. And to be really honest, that's the time when my creativity has shut down. I have poured into everyone all day long, and I can just be with her. I can have that time and be so present with her that I can give her my attention, which is, I think, one of the just core values in raising a child, and being able to give them attention so that they have a safe space, so that they feel valued, so that they feel loved. And yeah, and as far as the whole social media aspect of it, it's like a balancing act. Some days I'm like crazy and got to get all of the things done. And then the next day I was like, I kind of forgot about it and didn't even log into it. So I'm real sporadic on the social media part of it. It's more, yeah, that's kind of hit or miss for me. It's not necessarily that I wake up and have it right away, but it's more just when I have time, I'm like, okay, I'll check in. And for me, it's more checking in on my people, right? What's going on? Who's got things going on that I should be celebrating with them, or who's going through a rough time. And when I look at social media, that's kind of the lens I'm looking for, is who can I serve or how can I serve? Not necessarily just the mindless scroll.
Yeah. Can I piggyback off something that Katy talked about for a second? Is that okay?
You certainly can.
Okay, awesome. I think something really powerful that I heard through what you just shared, Katy, was you talked about like the time when you're going to do dishes, the time you're going to spend with your daughter, the time when you pour into the day and to people during the day. And what I hear through that, and what I've learned, for myself too, is that a lot of us have what I would call your maximum productivity times of the day. And it is not the same for everyone, right? Like, I'm a morning person. My husband, like 9 p.m., he comes alive, right? Like, we all have these different, like, kind of internal clocks, and that might have sounded really bad. But anyway, we all have these different internal clocks. And when you can recognize, like, when am I most creative? When am I most productive? Like, when am I most focused? And if you have the ability to target certain tasks around those times, like, I know for me, I always say after 8 p.m., my brain is basically shut off, right? So, like, go back to my husband, who's like, it's 9 p.m., I just got the kids in bed, and he like wants to like plan our life goals. And I'm like, what? Like, I can't even spell my name anymore, at this time of the day. But like, I think part of the challenge is like, how many of us run on caffeine? Right? And how many of us have been doing that for so long that we don't even know our bodies anymore, right? Like, we can't even read our own internal signals. And I think, like, just being more in tune with yourself, and it takes time, and it's not easy. And it's taken me 40 years now at this point. But like the more in tune you get with yourself, the more you realize that there are certain times when are just better for certain tasks than others. And it goes back to, filling your cup and balancing. And when you're doing the things that like suck your energy and need your brain power and you don't have it, like life's not fun. Life's not fun. So that's my little side note to amplify Katy's point.
Okay. I love it. That was
Crystal's
great.
gonna have so much fun editing this.
Oh dear.
That's like
obviously
on the next episode.
We keep talking about filling that our cup needs to be full before we can fill others' cups. My gosh, we're all just laughing hysterically now. What are some of the personal development things that you do to, keep working on yourself in a professional way? I know, Peggy, we talked a little bit about this, before we started recording earlier, but I don't know if you girls want to just kind of say some of the different things that you have done to help, keep improving on a professional basis. Katy, go ahead. Yeah, I think for me, there's a couple different things I'm doing. So as far as when it comes to the farm and professional development, that is being involved in the organizations, right? Our industry organizations, and surrounding myself with people that are better than me, people that are smarter than me, that are more successful than me. I think when you put yourself in a room of people that you aspire to be like, there is just so much power in the ability to grow and to grow really fast. And so, I will lovingly say this because I've said it to the people that I served with when I got a phone call and asked to serve on the Professional Dairy Producers Board. I was at the lowest point in my entire life. And I thought, why in the world would why would they even ask me? This is the worst possible point in my life. Why would someone ask me? And I stopped and I prayed about it and I stepped back and I was like, why not? These are the people that I admire and I respect, and they are the highest level of caliber of dairy producers in the world. I want to be like that. So I'm going to go on this board for really selfish reasons, because I need to be around people that are going to push me to grow, that are going to push me out of my comfort zone. And so I think being able to recognize when you need to be pushed is important. And so I would say, being involved in different organizations gives me a really good outlet for growth. As far as personal growth, I am a crazy goals person. My favorite holiday of the entire year is New Year's Eve, and that's only because I can look back at what goals I finished for the year and what am I going to start tomorrow. That just drives me and gets me so excited and so weird about and it's not just like the yearly goals, and then I break them down by month and then getting them into a weekly goal so that they're attainable. And it's just like, sounds crazy, but it's so exciting to me. And that's what really pushes me to keep going, is these goals. And it's a matter of being able to, again, surround yourself with people that are inspiring you, like Miss Peggy, and getting me into this crazy running idea, which I'm still not a fan of, but here I am still doing it with her. Yeah. And I do. I think that just when it comes to personal development and making sure that I'm on my game in order for me to serve others, making that a priority. And so making sure when I get up, I have to have some exercise. I have to move my body so that I have the energy just to pour into someone else. And it's having that time and having that schedule of, I need to have time with God so that not only can I just literally unload on him, but it gives me a time to stop and listen and hear him. And so I think there's a lot of times when we just get so caught up in the busyness, and it's the thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God, and I need this, and could you help them, that we never have a pause in order for him to talk back to us. And he's talking to us. It's just a matter of if we're listening or not. And so really setting a time and being intentional with that gives me the ability to be able to know that I can turn around and serve someone else. I really love those points that you hit on. Peggy, what kind of things do you do as well?
Yeah, well, some of it piggybacks off of what Katy said, and I would add to that too, that she's one of those, it goes back to the people, right? The people that you keep in communication with, and just surrounding yourself with those that give you a vision of what's possible for yourself, because you see what's possible for them and what they're working toward. And Katy's one of those friends in my life that does that. And I would add to that I have the best job in the world, doing what I'm doing, and that with the Up Level Dairy podcast, because I'm so fortunate that, like, this is what I get to talk with people, and they are kind enough to talk to me about things that they're doing. And it's a dairy industry, and we talk about a lot of different things, whether it's, employee management, or whether it's related to leadership, or just different aspects of the dairy business. At the end of the day, what I always see in every single guest is, they're the people that I want to be around. They're the people that I'm just so blessed to get one-on-one time with, and even more blessed to get to share that one-on-one conversation with an audience. And, Kate, back again, Katy's been one of them. She's been right there too. And really, like, I guess in some ways, maybe I selfishly created a business where I am constantly surrounded by incredible people who inspire me. And it goes back to, Katy talked about before too, your top 5 and the voices you have in your ear. Well, like I said, this is the business that I've created, is basically where I get to be the beneficiary of it, but I also get to build the stage so that others can see it. And I always say, like, in my work, I'm just a spotlight holder. Like, build the stage and hold the spotlight to let others shine. And I just get the benefit of catching a few rays of sunshine from my guests on my podcast. And they're my greatest inspiration, dairy farmers and people in the dairy industry.
I love it. And see, Peggy, you talk about you getting to interview great people on your podcast. I feel the same in the fact that I just have fantastic guests on here that always have so much information, so many fun little tidbits on, how you can be your best self, or just how to, live life with the doors wide open, and just, enjoy it instead of just suffering through it. So I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. And it's been great. So I guess let's chat about what is one of the biggest lessons that you have learned through your entrepreneurial journey. And, what did you learn? How did you learn it? That kind of thing. Katy, do you want to take this one first?
Katy, feel free.
Yeah, I can take it. I think I've had a lot of lessons, and I've learned most of them the hard way, of course. But I think when it comes to maybe developing when we started our on-farm market, I really struggled with trying to figure out this balance between how much time do I spend being a full-time farmer? How much time do I spend being a mom? How much time do I spend doing the boss stuff at the farm, not just the actual farming, but the other stuff? And how much time do I spend pouring into our market and doing the marketing and getting the physical product and things like that? And so that probably really set the structure part of my life into play a bit more. And so just having those set boundaries that Peggy talked about, right? I need to have structure. These are the only hours our market is open. And you know why? Because I have no other time in the day. And so this is where it's at. And, at the beginning, I was just stretching myself in order to grow a client base and grow market, and like, just to be able to have that. And then it was blood, sweat, and tears for a year and a half. And after a year and a half, I was like, nope, this is it. This is what I can actually physically, emotionally, I can manage, time-wise, I can manage. It fits in our family structure, and I'm okay with that. Have I maxed out where I'm going to be on sales and availability? Yep. Could I do more? Yep. Am I going to? Nope. Because at what cost? It's going to cost me time away from the other things that are just as important in my life. And so, again, it's being able to say yes, and also having the power to say, nope, that doesn't serve me right now. And so that was probably a really tough lesson for me to learn, just trying to balance, like, another ball in the everyday life.
Mm.
And Peggy, what kind of fun lesson did you learn?
Well, I think this might dovetail a little bit into what Katy has said, but I think one of the greatest lessons that I've learned from my own journey, and I'm going to add to this. So my husband, Kevin, he's amazing. He's so smart. He's an agriculture lender. And so he works with a lot of clients in the dairy and egg industry. And so I get the benefit of having this like business advisor in my own home who I sometimes choose not to take advantage of as much as I should. I tap into him for just like, what do you see in the people that you're working with that are most successful? And what are they doing as owners and operators of, some successful and profitable businesses, whether it's dairy or cropping? And what I've learned from him is that bigger isn't always better. It really comes back to being really clear in the first place on the life that you want and not just the business that you want. And he's seen this, and I've experienced it too, where you can create something incredible. Whether it's a business, whether it's a farming business or another business or a side hobby, whatever, you can create something incredible. But if it doesn't really go to your bigger picture of the life that you want, it may not be the true picture of success. And so, like, just an example, like for a dairy, right? A dairy, him and I were just talking about this, like a dairy that wants to expand. Well, okay, so what if you double in size? Sure, now you're bigger. Awesome. Okay, well, are you more positioned for the future? Are you creating more time with your family? So what do you really want? Do you want more time with your kids? Do you want to be able to go to their sporting events? Do you want to take a family vacation, or do you want to be tied to this expansion project? And, and is that really your true picture of success? And I've had to ask myself the same questions in my business with Up Level Dairy and the podcast, and say, okay, like, what's our bigger picture for our family and our future? And just get really clear on what that looks like. What has helped me, again, I talk about hitting that pause button, but there are some tools that have been super helpful for me along that journey. One of them is there's a book called Traction, and it promotes this entrepreneurial operating system. And I actually did a podcast about this a while back with some producers. That was pretty cool. But anyway, just like having a framework and a structure to start like scheduling out, where do you really want to be? Like, where do you want to be 3 years from now? And what's the bigger vision? And you may not have all the details filled in on that bigger vision, but for me, like, it's to have a great marriage. It's to have kids that still want to hang out with me, right? Like, it's to build an asset with Up Level Dairy and not just build busy work, right? And so getting clear on those things, it didn't all happen right away. But over time, just getting more and more clear on what that looks like, that has probably been one of the biggest lessons that I've taken away is like, clarity is everything. And your most clear picture not only allows you to make the next right moves and feel confident in that, but it also allows you to speak to others with confidence and clarity about who you are and what you're doing. And that means that you're going to attract more people into your circle that are on board with that too, and that can see the picture of the future for what you're creating and how it benefits them. But in your heart that future is what's in alignment with what you truly want. And like, are there ways that I could take my business and travel all the time and do all these amazing things? Oh gosh, are there ever? But does that contribute to being the mom I want to be and the wife I want to be at the end of the day? And that's where I've had those lessons of learning how to draw some harder lines and say no to things that don't serve that future version of myself and my family.
That was fantastic. I really, really, really enjoyed both of you answering that question. And while we're starting to wrap up this episode, I would love for you to each give one like tip for someone who wants to start out becoming an entrepreneur or basically shaping their own life, taking their life into their own hands, what is one tip that you would leave for them? Peggy, we'll start with you on this one.
Great. So this is you asked me for one thing. It's going to be a couple all wrapped in one. I'll try and make it fast. So I think there were a few really important questions that I asked myself, kind of in my entrepreneurial experience over the last couple of years. And I still don't identify with the word entrepreneur. I'm just an impatient problem solver that wants to just take care of it. That's all I am. I see problems, I see people, and I'm like, let me create something to connect you to a solution. That's all I do, and try to make a business doing it so that I can do it full time. That's it. But a couple of things, really important exercises that I walk myself through include looking at people that I admired that were farther along in their own journey. And they were independent people that left corporate, careers and became independent, serving the dairy industry at a really high level. And I'll tell you who some of them are. Christy Pagel is one, and she's a very dear friend of mine and a role model. It's Polly Paul, who is on my podcast regularly and a very good friend and an incredible mentor in the business world, in the dairy business world. And I look at them and I started to really strip down, why are they successful in what they do? And a couple of things that I came down to were, they realized what are the problems that people are willing to pay to solve, and how could they position themselves to be the best in the world at solving those problems. And look at those two people, like I said, good friends of mine, and they don't have to publicize what they do, because business comes to them because of the reputation that they've built from serving people well and doing it at an extremely high level and being in the top 10% of what they do. And as I watched them and looked at what I was doing, which, like I said, in the beginning was a few different things, it really helped me to strip back down and say, what can I be the best at? What is my natural gift that I need to just focus on and hone in and my new identity, make myself believe this is who I am. I'm not a magazine editor anymore. Right? I have a podcast business. This is what I do. And I serve dairy producers through it. But just that little exercise of just identifying where are the needs and how can I best serve those needs, and how can I do it in a way that isn't being done right now and makes me different. I think if anyone else is looking to start their own journey and to step away from the security and the comfort of what they know, if they can just really hone in on those couple of pieces, it will set themselves up to not just work hard. We can all work hard. We're all great workers, right? That's why we grew up on farms. That's why we're in the dairy industry. But to actually get where you want to be and serve the people you want to serve in the way that you are best suited and best called and best gifted by God to serve them. How's that for one thing?
Fantastic. That was a fantastic quote unquote singular thing, Peggy. Very good. I love that advice, though. That definitely helps to steer someone in the correct direction and make sure that they have a purpose that they're going to be, filling before they jump in and don't realize what they're actually doing. So, what do you have for advice?
Yeah, I think I would challenge someone to maybe just take a look at a couple questions. And so those questions would really be, first and foremost, what does success look like to you? So when you're either starting a new business or starting a new project, being able to identify what success actually means to you really will steer the ship and where you're going. And so whether success means meeting a number mark on a profit margin, whether success means serving X amount of customers, whether success means have 3 hours a day to spend with my family. What is success? And what does it look like in the context of starting this business? And in that same breath, I will say, I would like people to take a step back and really think about, when you're looking at your core values, how can those core values actually be completely implemented into your entrepreneurial experience. Because if your values are not in that experience, you will fizzle out really fast. It might be a really great idea and it might be able to make you a lot of money really fast. But if it is not in line with your core values, you are going to lose that spark and that fire really fast and become really unsuccessful and really unhappy pretty quickly. And with that same breath, what lights your fire? Like if you know that this is my top 3 things, that this is what gets me out of bed every morning, this is what I am excited about, this is the God-given gifts I've been given, this is where I need to be. You need to be able to identify those in order to move forward. And so if you're not putting those into your business, if you're not putting those into your family, into the countless other things that you're involved in, it's really a disservice to the business and to the people around you. And so, yeah, what does success look like? What lights you on fire? And what are your core values?
You guys both just know the number 1 so well. I love it. That was just meant as a joke, though. I absolutely love that advice for anyone. You know, you don't have to be a young person starting out. You can be even, you know, someone in your 40s, 50s starting out and you want to take a different journey. Like, that's okay. And I think both of you ladies gave advice that would fit anyone at any point in their life and really help them step back and say, what do I want to do? Where am I going? And why is it important? And I love that. That was really fantastic and a fun way to end that subject on this episode. So now I like to get into a little extra fun. While I'm not going to do rapid fire questions because it's too hard with both of you, I am going to ask you a question that a previous guest left for future guests on the podcast. That is just like a thought-provoking, you know, it can be fun, can be really just serious and thought-provoking. So your question, ladies, is what advice do you wish you could go back and give your 20-year-old self? So let's start with you, Peggy.
Okay, so this is where you're going to get more than like one answer. But so Katy and I just did an event together last week that I host called Bloom. And my friend Christy was there that I just mentioned, Christy Pagel. And she made this comment. Do you remember what she said, Katy? Like, the best thing about like being 40 is you get to live your 20s all over again, but now you're smarter. And if I could, you know, I think if I could give my 20-year-old self a little piece of advice, it would be that if you made a list of all the things you cared about and you crossed off 95% of them, you'd know what really matters.
I deafened.
Don't actually drop your mic. That wouldn't be good for your podcast recordings. But that was fantastic. I love that. That was great.
Aren't you proud of me? That was the shortest answer I gave you.
Hey, it was good, but it was short and sweet and to the point, and it was wonderful. Now, Katy, you have to top it.
Oh, I'm definitely not going to top that. I think if I look back at my 20-year-old self, I wish I would have just led with passion. Find what really lights me on fire instead of being involved in 52 different things and trying to do all of these other things. Just do the things that light you on fire. Don't waste your time doing this because this will look good, or so-and-so is doing this, or I should be here. None of that matters. If you're not doing something that you are excited about and passionate about, it is not worth your time. Don't spend your 20s being burnt out doing things because society says you need to, or because this is the stage of life. Do it because you want to do it, you're excited about it, you love it, and you're passionate.
Katy, were you talking to 20-year-old you, or were you talking to 20-year-old me? Because that was like, you know, right on there what I should have heard when I was 20, which is absolutely hilarious. And I love our guests to leave us with one, you know, kind of quote, anecdote, whatever you want to choose, that just really lights your soul on fire, makes you just want to go do big things. So, Katy, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think for me, it goes back to the phrase of God, let them see you in me. In everything you do, look at how you can serve and love and care to those around you. This world is a really big place and life is really not that long. And so if you can do anything to serve those around you and make the lives around you better, it is going to pay you back tenfold.
There was her mic
I
drop.
love that, Katy. And that was your mic drop. And I'm gonna reference the quote that I have on my board next to me. And this is every year I pick one word for the year, and my word this year is bold. And I have on my little board here 2 Timothy 1:7, and it says, God does not call us to be shy with our gifts, but bold and loving and sensible. And I think that verse it's my life verse for this year, but I think it speaks to everything we've been talking about. Being bold and sharing the gifts that God's given you and doing it from a place of love. But that word sensible, let's circle that back to what we've also been talking about, burnout, right? And doing the things that fill our cup, or maybe removing things that don't. And that's where I think that little word on the end, sensible, I have bold underlined, but I should probably be making sensible in bold. No pun intended.
That's wonderful. And I love the common core that you guys both have, that they were both, from the Bible, and both very resonated in the conversation that we had today. And I love that. So let's leave our guests with where they can find both of you lovely ladies if they want to connect with you more. Katy, where can we find you?
Yeah, the easiest way to get in touch with me is on social media, whether that's through Facebook or Instagram. Facebook is definitely the better option. I have a lot more traction there, and so that's through Trifecta Farms Family Market, or you can search my personal page as well.
Excellent, and I'll tag that in the show notes for you. Peggy?
So for anybody that's enjoyed this conversation today, I would definitely invite you to make sure you're following Uplevel Dairy Podcast on Spotify or Apple. Everything's also on YouTube, but I want to draw special attention to episode number 41. So if you hit up the Uplevel Dairy Podcast, make sure you hit the follow button first, but then scroll down to episode 41. And that's where I have this amazing episode called The 7 Secrets to Setting Goals and Achieving Them. And Katy was actually one of the guests on that episode. So we talk about, this fire and this burn and igniting that. And so Katy talked about that a lot today. So if you found that was a valuable conversation for you, this episode 41, and if Val is so kind, maybe she can throw a link in the show notes for anybody that might want to listen to that. But other than that, I love to be able to supply people with the stuff that I'm doing right in their inbox, and they can subscribe to receive emails at upleveldairy.com to do that as well.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining me today on the podcast. I've really enjoyed chatting with both of you, and I have a feeling that it would just basically be a giggle fest, and I think that would be just fine. So we should give that a shot in the near future when I make it out to good old Wisconsin, and we will talk to you all next week. Have a great day.